Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Yee-Haw, a Bonanza Podcast. I'm your host, Melissa, and today we are watching Season 1, Episode 8, the Phillip Diedesheimer Story. I genuinely don't know if that's how you pronounce his last name. I was especially confused because when I watched this episode, every character was pronouncing his last name differently. So I don't really know what the correct pronunciation is, but we're just gonna have to deal. It's funny because it kind of sounds like a Looney Tunes character, like the Diedesheimer or a Dr. Seuss character. But yeah, I don't know how you pronounce that last name accurately. So we're gonna have to deal with that. Couple things. Number one, if you are listening to this show on Apple Podcasts or if you're listening on YouTube, if you would consider leaving me a positive review on Apple Podcasts, I would really appreciate it. It helps boost my show in the numbers, and I'm also genuinely interested to hear what you guys think. So if you are enjoying my show so far, please consider heading on over to Apple Podcasts and dropping me a quick review. It would mean so much, and it would really help support the show. Also, if you are listening on Apple Podcasts and you want a visual as you're going through these episodes with me, I show a very blurred out version of the episode on my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel is @MeltyEnjoys. So if you want to see a copy of the episode as I'm talking about it and reviewing it, you can go head on over to my YouTube channel, again, @MeltyEnjoys, and you can watch along with me. Okay, so before we get into the Phillip Diedesheimer story, I'm not going to be able to say that without laughing. We do have some thoughts from Robert on the saga of Annie O'Toole from last week. So let's go ahead and read those, and then we'll go ahead and get into the Phillip Diedesheimer story. I'm sorry. I don't know why that makes me laugh. Diedesheimer. Diedesheimer. I think it's Diedesheimer. I don't know. Pay attention to the way the characters say it in the episode. Okay. So Robert sent in his thoughts on the saga of Annie O'Toole, and he says, overall, I rate this episode a 9 out of 10. It's very good, almost great. I like the premise of the story, and I love the writing. I thought all the characters were perfectly cast. Ida Lupino is her usual brilliant self, and who better to be the scatterbrained prospector than the skipper from Gilligan's Island? It was excellently paced, and I never felt there was any extra padding. This episode was delightfully funny. When Annie was explaining how himself had been eating hotcakes, choked, and died, and Haas asked if it was from the hotcakes was just priceless. The whole explosion in the tent and the subsequent ejecting of the characters was like a live-action cartoon, but I loved it. Yeah, in the saga of Annie O'Toole, for some reason, I could see that entire episode animated. There was just a lot of really funny action, really funny, like, drawn-out lines as I was talking about that really made me feel like it could be a cartoon episode. Robert goes on to say, when Adam said that the men of the camp were interested in her culinary arts, only to be told to watch his tongue by Annie was priceless. I enjoyed Ben telling Adam, you have no right to think, and of course, the chef's kiss to this episode was naming the mine the Lucky Stiff after himself. All great moments. Not too many negatives in this episode. I thought Ben was a little too easily manipulated into becoming the arbitrator of all things mining related, but that's just a minor quibble. I'm not sure how I feel about the narration. I'm glad it was Adam doing the narration, and it was quite humorous in the end, but it just fell out of place. Other than that, it was a good time. Not as quotable as the last episode, and I'm greatly relieved we don't have to add to the tally. Well, thank you for sending in your thoughts, Robert. It is nice that no women died in this episode. No women died. Annie is safe. Thank God. You know, when I was watching the episode at the time, I couldn't remember if they ever did narration again. And then another one of my listeners, also named Melissa, she pointed out that Lorne Greene does do some narration in a few later episodes. I don't think that they do it a lot. When she mentioned that, suddenly episodes like Springtime popped up in my brain that has a little bit of narration, but it's not throughout the entire episode. So I think the narration in the saga of Annie O'Toole was mostly played for comedic effect. Generally speaking, I think it's an odd take to an episode. I just think it depends on how it's utilized. I was fine with it because it was being used for comedy. Again, there is some narration in later episodes that I forgot about, but I don't think that they do it too often. But yeah, the Saga of Annie O'Toole is a great episode. That was such a great one to revisit. You get so many good laughs out of it, and it made me so excited to watch future comedy episodes because some of the comedy on this show is just amazing, and it really showcases the actors' range. They can do so much. If you guys want to send your thoughts into the show, you can email me at meltyenjoys@gmail.com. I would love to hear any and all thoughts that you have. So again, email me at meltyenjoys@gmail.com to have your thoughts read on the show. At the time of recording this episode, it is Thursday, December 12th. Before we get to the end of the year, I'm going to try to get through at least episodes 9 and 10 before we hit January 1st of 2025. So cross fingers for me, guys, that I don't get too busy. I'm going to try to record another episode this Sunday. It's currently Thursday. So hopefully I'll get another episode recorded this Sunday and then maybe episode 10 on Monday so I can get those uploaded before the year ends. So hopefully I'll be able to get that done. Cross fingers. Christmas gets so busy, but I am committed to getting at least the first 10 episodes of Bonanza finished. All right, I think we're ready to dive into the Phillip Diedesheimer story. This episode was written by Thomas Thompson, David Dortort, and Fred Hamilton. It was directed by Joseph Kane. It premiered October 31st, 1959. Its special guests were John Beal, Mala Powers, R.G. Armstrong, Charles Cooper, Paul Birch, Robert Osterloh, William Forrest, Alan, I don't know why I said that, Alan Reynolds, Howard Negley, and Mae Marsh. Okay, so I have the episode description here from IMDb, but I don't think it's an accurate description, but I'm going to read it anyway. It says, Phillip Diedesheimer, a Pied Piper, is refused payment after he saves Virginia City's silver mines from a cave-in. That's not true. He's not refused payment. It's just that nobody wants to use his invention, and he refuses to be paid for it. In the end, spoiler alert. Okay, a couple notable things about Phillip Diedesheimer. Never going to get over that last name. So funny. So he is yet another historical figure from real life. He was born in 1832, I believe, and died in 1916. He was a mining engineer in the 1860s. He was hired by W.F. Babcock, a trustee of the Ophir mine, which was part of the Comstock Lode silver mining boom in Nevada. And he solved one of the Comstock's mine's most critical engineering needs by introducing the square set timbering. Very cool. After doing some research into Mr. Diedesheimer, the episode is once again pretty accurate with the details that they include on his life. I mean, you got to give these writers kudos. David Dortort was a total history nerd, and it is on full display in season 1. So kudos to the writers, for incorporating all these historical figures and historical accuracies. It's really fun. And again, you learn something, which I am always a big fan of. Phillip Diedesheimer is portrayed by actor John Beal. Sorry about that. I'm not super familiar with his work, but some of the work that he's known for is The Firm, Doctors Don't Tell, Atlantic Convoy, and Double Wedding. 3 of those movies were created between 1937 and 1941, except for The Firm, actually. Actually, that's with Tom Cruise, is it not? Yes, it is with Tom Cruise. Never mind, I have seen The Firm. That's such a lie. That's been a minute, though. Oh, okay, so he was in The Firm in 1993. Haven't seen any of these other movies, though, which makes sense because they're all from the 1930s. He also appeared in The Kid Who Loved Christmas, A Place at the Table, A Year in the Life, Jennifer, A Woman's Story, Barnaby Jones, Eleanor and Franklin, The White House Years, Family, The Streets of San Francisco, The Adam Chronicles, The Blue Knight, The Waltons. I haven't seen a large majority of these, but that's okay. But he's got a very long IMDb. I have not seen a lot of his work. But yeah, that's a little bit on John Beal's work. Watched this episode on the box set. Didn't have very many images this week, just a couple of shots of the mining location, where they go down to the mine. Very small set. I guess I've never really thought about how tiny some of these sets were on the soundstage, but it makes me wonder how much space the actors actually had to work with. Like, I bet they had a lot of marking points, like, don't cross this line because the camera's here and we got to make sure that we get this entire shot without showcasing the ceiling of the studio. It makes the sets look really small, but there were a couple pictures of Dan Blocker and then the actress who plays Helene. Is it Mala Powers, I think? I think it's Mala Powers. Yes, Helene Holloway. Yeah, it was a couple shots of Dan Blocker and Mala Powers on the set, and the set looked really tiny. I guess you don't think about things like this, actors having to hit their marks. Okay, guys, I think we are ready to watch the Phillip Diedesheimer story. Let's go ahead and pull the episode up and check it out. All right, everybody, pull up your copy of the episode and let's watch the Phillip Diedesheimer story. Okay, we are hitting play in 3, 2, 1, go. That dress is gorgeous. The muted pink, the frills. Very Victorian era. It's too much handsome in this room right now. Way too much handsome. The actor's name is Charles Cooper, who plays Gil. Also very handsome. I can't believe they live this close to the mine. Well, okay, I mean, he's in charge of it, so I guess that makes sense, but still, they're like right next door. This episode skips the theme song again, but if you watch the opening for this particular episode, they're all so serious in the intro. Nobody's smiling. It's just the most blank, serious stares as they're introducing the cast. I thought that was really funny. I don't know why these episodes skip the theme. To save time, I don't know, but I like watching the theme. Solid punch. The pose and hit. Very solid punch. Oh, this old lady, I swear, she made my heart melt. Aww. I really liked Charles Cooper in this episode. He's not in the episode very long, but I really liked him for the time he was part of it. Gil's so loyal too. Again, too much handsome. And those outfits, about to get ruined. Such a shame. A wild thing to say. Yeah, wow, that is so crappy. There is a really interesting theme in this episode of putting business and corporate thinking before lives, which is one of the stronger points of this episode. I think just that general commentary. Oh, there's a lot of good lighting out for 2 o'clock in the morning. Aw. Aw. I really I appreciate Gil's character in this episode very much. That is so cold. Gil should snap off. People aren't numbers. I don't know how to feel about what they did with Mr. Holloway in this episode. I'll save that for the end, but I wasn't super impressed with how they concluded this story. Yeah, Gil has every right to be like this. Diedesheimer. See, he said it differently. Adam shoots daggers with his looks sometimes. You can he says very much without saying anything at all. There's a commentary on the separation of the classes here too. And how Gil puts himself on the level of other people. Like, he doesn't consider himself above them. Still. And anybody who dies gets a box of groceries. So don't worry, they're well taken care of. No problems here. I liked Gil. Oh man. Don't get me wrong, I think what happens to him benefits the story. I do. I liked Gil. Trigalis. Trigalis. I don't like this guy. He's so two-faced. Trigalis. Switching to whatever benefits him. It's just an overarching theme of, putting people first and treating them well and viewing every life as valuable. Suck up, get out of here, Trigalis. My anxiety I could never go down there and put my faith on somebody above to make sure that I come back up. Adam's like, no PDA on the mining shaft. No, isn't that the last time that they talk to each other? Get out. I'm never over Gil. Her outfit's amazing in this episode. Costume designer did her a lot of justice. These shots in the mine, like the way that they do the cave-ins and all the dust, I'm so curious as to how they did that. Like, what did production for that look like on the set? How did they do those effects? Pretty cool. I do like John Beal's accent for Phillip Diedesheimer in this episode. It's very satisfying to listen to. fun little tidbit on Adam. He designed the Ponderosa. So how many years have they had it? When did he design it? Was it after he got back from college? Fun things to think about. I do like how this episode demonstrates Adam's skills as an architect and engineer. Some nice little details to his character that we get to learn. Oh, my claustrophobia could never. No, I hate this scene. Like that effect, that the dropping of all the debris, that was really cool. How did they do that? It's just a guy standing above dropping debris on all the actors. I'm so serious right now. I'm getting claustrophobic just thinking about being enclosed in a very tight space like that. Nope, claustrophobia can't. Can't. And it would be so hard to breathe. I can't even imagine. Underrated dynamic in this episode. Haas and Helene. Oh, he's such a sweet character. Gosh. That guy didn't even put up a fight. I was like, get out of my way. I don't have time for you. Also, loyalty. Adam in danger. Haas is like, nope, nobody's going to stand in my way. That's my brother. The loyalty on this show is one of my favorite things. So much family loyalty and love. The dirt and the injuries and like the sweaty look. I mean, it looks good. The effects, I mean like the, what am I saying here? The makeup. You'd lose air pretty quick, wouldn't you? Ross is like, well, I'm here now, so I'm going to save the day. I think adding this experience of Adam and Phillip Diedesheimer getting caught in the mine adds more to the raw experience, and also The loss of Gil. That tiny little lamp. Aw. You know, this episode does do a good job of making you attached to Gil and Helene, or Helene, Helene or Helene, Helene. Like as characters, you do feel the loss of Gil. Like his loss really is felt, and it's literally we get 15 to 16 minutes into the episode and we lose Gil. And I think that Gil's character was actually set up quite nicely. Like I really liked him, and I'm bummed out that he dies. Now go take a long bath. And you do really feel bad for Helene. Her reaction is heartbreaking. Oh, she's a good actress. You feel so bad. Throw it back in his face, girl. Throw it back in his face. Oh, get out of here. Get out of here. Mm. Yeah, screw you, Mr. Holloway. And he said it differently too. I do think John Beal's accent is very fun. Very rugged voice. Adam's like, "'Tis but a scratch. Your whole arm's cut off." Is this an underrated scene? That's right. Get out. Leave. How dare you put human life above business? How dare you? Mr. Tregellis, what the hell? Mr. Tregellis, you two-faced son of a gun. I love this deliberate ignorance of him. I like how they just both decided to ignore him. All right, Mr. Diedesheimer. Way to go. I love Adam's face there, the smile. He's so amused. Oh, now this is a really lovely scene. It might be my favorite moment in the whole episode. Now, he's definitely talking about Marie here, because Inger died, like, I don't know, a few weeks after Haas was born. So he's definitely talking about Marie. Really good dialogue here. Good line. It's a nice little callback here to the newcomers. I love this line. Oh, gosh. Oh, that's a nice little scene. It's like, don't pretend that he never existed in your life, but you can't stop living life simply because he died. You have to keep going. Oh, that was a nice little character moment. It's just, how does anybody, you can't not like Haas. It's just impossible. I asked my dad once, I was like, who's your favorite character on Bonanza? Like, who do you like the best? And he's like, you genuinely cannot dislike Haas. He's like, I don't think I've ever talked to somebody before that was like, oh, I don't really like Haas that much. He's so likable and sweet. You know, personally, I'm an Adam girly, but I love all of the characters for different reasons. It's very hard to be like, this person's my favorite. They all have their strengths and weaknesses as characters that you just gotta love them for. Diedesheimer? 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 Diedesheimer. 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 Who cares? Honestly, who cares? Diedesheimer. Diedesheimer. Haas's hat is hatting right now. Again, more historical accuracies incorporated into the episode. Gotta give the writers credit where credit's due. He looks like a little kid coming in with his project. Look, Dad, look what I made. I'm shocked at Adam's restraint in this episode. That he didn't pop off more at Mr. Holloway, especially because he was good friends with Gil. But then again, Adam's anger is usually like a fuse ready to blow. There's a lot expressed in his eyes than in deliberate dialogue. Oh, God. Okay, hopefully this what I'm about to say doesn't go over anybody's heads, but Mr. Holloway looks like Burgermeister Meisterburger from it's not Year Without a Santa Claus, it's the other one. Herr Burgermeister, Herr Burgermeister. It's Anyway, you guys hopefully know what I'm referencing. That is, throw that back in his face. Throw that back in his face. Cold line, but he deserved that. By the way, the special Burgermeister Meisterburger is from Santa Claus is Coming to Town. I don't know why I blanked out, but hopefully y'all were raised on that classic. But that's what Mr. Holloway looks like. That is also a good line. Only the dead have time to wait, and we are concerned with the living. Pretentious corporate minds. Hoss is like, nodding, has no idea what Adam's saying, which honestly would be me. Yeah, stand up for Adam. Hey now. Yeah, what uncalled for? You're lucky that he didn't punch you for that line. Yeah, you're lucky Adam didn't punch your face out, or worse, Hoss. Oh, guys, the family loyalty in this show is so good. Oh, that's a cute bit of dialogue there. Oh, the early family dynamics coming together, so cute. Oh, love it. That's a nice little jab at Joe. Free labor. Just tell him he can't do it. Amen to that. Is that the first time anybody mentions that they're half brothers in the show, other than, well, other than maybe the first episode? Very interesting premise for Ben to have three different wives, all lost in a very different tragedy, and then having three sons from each of those wives. Aw, that's also a nice line. Nothing is ever lost. Nothing is ever destroyed. Oh, I like how Haas. I do like how Haas attempts to encourage Helene not to turn against her father. Or Helene. Or, I don't know. I'm getting that mixed up so much. He's like, you're not going to tell, are you? Nobody can cross Haas. Okay, now I think that this is where some of my qualms with the episode started to come through. As if. It's so cute when anybody thinks they can take on Haas. Headbutt, love that. Andrew Holloway. Okay, this is a little bit where my qualms come in with this episode. Like it feels like some of the character development for Mr. Holloway was a bit rushed. It's pretty cool. Rest in peace, Adam's Han Solo look. I did like that look. for Gil. They're like, it's too expensive. Car rates do it anyway. Oop. Ha ha ha. Very funny. Get these corporate shills out of here. What if they all just died? Like, what if it exploded and all of them died? It's not funny, but it's my Looney Tunes humor kicking in. The Wile E. Coyote. Like that effect is so cool. How they do that is awesome. So supposedly he did say that in real life. I did find an article with a quote like that. I'm not sure if it's 100% true, but I did find a quote from an article that he apparently did say something along those lines in real life. Which honestly, if true, very noble. We love that. Diedesheimer. Okay, well, let's get done with this episode and then I'll share my thoughts. But thank you, Haas. Thank you for that validation. And they all lived happily ever after. All right. Directed by Joseph Kane. Oh, the credits here are a little bit different. Okie dokie. Okay, so couple talking points. I like the theme in this episode, just the generalized theme of, putting profit over people and disregard for human life and corporate thinking, and how there's just so little value placed on the workers, like they're all worth a box of groceries. I really did like that overarching theme of just not caring about the people that get hurt in the process when business is booming. I thought that was a nice theme. I liked Gil as a character a lot. I think Charles Cooper, for not being in this episode very long, I think that he is very likable. I think that his loss is deeply felt, and it's only 15 minutes into the episode. You feel a lot of compassion for the Helene character. You feel a lot of compassion for the loss of that relationship. I think that John Beal had like a fun little character role as Phillip Diedesheimer. I liked him, but he wasn't super notable to me. It's like, oh, okay, you're fine. I didn't love him, didn't hate him. It was just, you kind of felt like he was just there. Like I said before, I think Mala Powers as Helene was very sympathetic and very likable. And I do think that the writing makes you feel compassion for her and Gil and the loss of Gil. I did really like how the writers handled that. My favorite moment in this episode is absolutely the scene where Haas and Helene are talking about Gil's death. And Haas is like, I'm not saying don't acknowledge that Gil died and he was a person in your life, but don't define yourself by that loss. Don't allow it to let you stop living. I thought that was a nice little quiet moment. Loved the callback to the newcomers. I love it when episodes call back to previous episodes. That was probably my favorite scene in the entire episode. I liked the exploration of Adam's engineering and architectural skills. You slowly get more and more information about these characters and their interests and their likes and their dislikes. I think they mention in a later episode that Adam goes to college in the East in his 20s, like he left for a period of time to study architecture, and then he came back and built the Ponderosa, so it brings up a lot of questions. How long have they had the Ponderosa for? When did Adam help build it? What did their life look like before that when they were living with Marie? So there's like a lot of cool theories that you could generate there. I do have to say the weakest point of this episode is the development of both Mr. Holloway and Helene's relationship. I think that Mr. Holloway's change of heart happened way too quick. And it felt very, very rushed. It definitely needed more development because as far as I know, he had that moment with Helene where they were talking about Gil's death and she was like, well, when are you going to send me my box of groceries? And then she leaves. And then like 2 scenes later, Mr. Holloway's like, I'm going to help them build the mine now. And I just thought it was weird that it was rushed that quick. Like, to me, they never really gave a turning point for his character in the episode. Like, I think that they expected that moment with Helene to be like the turning point, but it just didn't really feel like a clear resolution. And I would have to say that the same thing goes for Helene's character as well. It's like you don't really see like a definite turning point where she chooses not to give up on her father. They just kind of loosely pull it together in the end. So I think that is the episode's weakest link. And I almost feel like they could have added a scene in the episode where Mr. Holloway really sees the effect of, I don't know, the loss of the young men or the old men in relationship to the wives. Like maybe he needed an experience with a woman that he knew really well, like losing her husband. And they kind of did that with the daughter. But I just don't feel like they ever brought that to a conclusion to have that change of heart. I think that he needed to really be impacted somehow. So by the time that you really do get to the end of the episode, there's a drastic change in the way that he views the situation, and the episode just never gives it to you. Again, while I mentioned that I liked the theme of profit over people and not valuing human life, it definitely felt very secondary to the square timbering invention that Phillip Diedesheimer introduces. Like, I like that theme a lot, but I don't know if they went into it as well as they could have. It just felt like they wanted to tie those two things into the episode, but it kind of felt like the theme suffered a little bit in favor of like square timbering invention, which I understand, but it would have been nice to see that conclude a little bit better. But yeah, I gotta be honest, I would say that the weakest point of this episode is the ending. I don't think that they tied everything together very well. It felt very rushed, and it felt like the writers were like, oh, we gotta tie this up in a really quick way. So the ending felt very disjointed. It's a good episode. I wouldn't call it great. It's entertaining. I don't know if it would be a go-to for me. Solid script, but I don't think the story grabbed me very much. What did you guys think? How do you guys feel about Mr. Holloway's development? Did you think that it was as loose as I think it is? I think it started off strong with the approach to the character, but it feels like they lost the message halfway through, and then by the time you get to the end, you're like, okay. But I would love to know what you guys think of Mr. Holloway's character development. What do you think of the plot of this one? What do you think of the introduction of Phillip Diedesheimer? I'm never going to get this, am I? I'd love to hear any and all thoughts. You can either drop a comment on my YouTube channel. Let me know what you think. Or you can email me at meltyenjoys@gmail.com with all of your thoughts on this episode, and I would love to read them on the show. Next time, we will be watching Mr. Henry Comstock, which is episode 9 of season 1. I don't really remember this episode. You know what? I might have skipped it when I was initially going through. I actually might have skipped Mr. Henry Comstock. I'm going to have to double check that because I don't really remember that episode. Like and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you are watching on my YouTube. Please consider leaving me a positive review on Apple Podcasts if you are listening on Apple Podcasts. Or if you're listening on YouTube, I would also really appreciate a review on Apple Podcasts. Every little bit helps, and I would love to know what you guys think. And I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but you can also follow me on Instagram at Melty, MELTY _enjoys. That's my Instagram. If you want to keep up with what I'm doing and all my new posts, you can head on over there. But thank you for checking out today's episode of Yee-Haw Bonanza Podcast, and I will see you next time when we watch Mr. Henry Comstock. Have a great day, everybody.